We have an update on the Madeline Soto story, something I want to go over. Feel like it's quite important. So this is the 12-year-old that turned 13 back in February of 2024 who went missing in the area of Kissimmee, Florida. Maddie celebrated her birthday with her family members, except for her mother because she was working, and her mother's boyfriend showed up to the birthday party to be supportive of Maddie. But 11 p.m. that night, that would be the last time Jen Soto would see her daughter Maddie. According to Jennifer Soto's boyfriend Stephan, he said that Maddie had a very difficult time sleeping by herself. It wasn't unusual for Jen, Maddie, and Stephan to sleep together in one bed, but this time Jennifer wanted to sleep alone so that she could get rest, and she sends Stephan and her daughter Maddie to bed. Stephan says that he dropped Maddie off at school, which is something he don't usually do. That's something Jen does. But the problem is, Jen went to go pick up her daughter Maddie, but Maddie wasn't there. So this is February 26th. So the next day is the 26th. And what we're doing is we're going over a quick update of what this story is. And if you want to hear more on it, you can go check out my older videos. Now, it turns out that immediately, according to investigators, Stephan Sterns was an immediate person of interest. After searching, family and friends, asking questions, going up to the school, there was no signs of Maddie anywhere. Of course, some of the first things that family and investigators do is they go and look for security footage that might be able to tell them something, give them a clue of what happened to Maddie. Immediately, police are able to identify that Stephan Sterns was driving his vehicle from the apartment complex with a passenger that appeared to be sleeping, that they would later find out that was most likely Maddie Soto, deceased. Stephan Sterns, his malice intentions were to get rid of every bit of evidence that he could. He drops some things off in the dumpster, heads to a parking garage where he takes the passenger out of the vehicle and puts that passenger into a trunk, where he drives out to a rural area in St. Cloud, then returns home with no passenger. Investigators did collect quite a bit of surveillance evidence of Stephan Sterns driving. They picked up his tag. They just had a lot of evidence that they were accumulating on top of what they got off his phone, even though he set it to factory default. Investigators discovered that there are some very child images, just to put it politely, on there, and they insinuated that Madeline Soto was in several of those images. They hinted that Madeline Soto most likely had been abused by Stephan for several years. Before all this, Stephan is acting like he is a victim. He's crying on the cameras. He's talking to media. Stephan seems very supportive and helping Jen locate her daughter. But his demeanor, if you watch him on some of this media footage, is very strange. It's almost as if he's enjoying what's going on and feels that he might be clever enough to get away with this. It was easy to see that he was most likely manipulating the situation, manipulating Jen Soto. Anyone that's ever been around an abuser of any type knows how manipulative they can be. They'll use these excuses of being concerned or helping you out in order to get isolated time with their victim. And so this is what, for me, so far, Stephan Sterns seems to be this great manipulator that's been manipulating both Jen and Maddie for a very, very long time. I think shockingly, the most shocking part of this is where you see Stephan Sterns on a media interview where he's actually shedding or attempting to shed tears. This is a man that is accused of doing some very heinous and malicious things to a very young 13-year-old. And he's trying to manipulate the world. He shows no signs of regret. But the problem is, for me, as I watch a lot of these people, and of course it's their right. I mean, I'm not 100% right. I might not be right at all. But they're trying to say that Jen took part in this. And today there's emails coming out of into the media between Stephan and his family members, his mother and his brother, suggesting that Jen had more to do with this than she's admitting. Well, that would make no sense, because if the mother knew this, then how? If the mother knows that Jen had something to do with some of this sexual assault, how would she know these things? Well, it seems to me, and we're going to go over these emails, that we can see where Stephan most likely is enabled in his manipulating skills and might have even inherited some manipulation skills. Investigators have done a lot of research, and they were quick to get on this. And I'm quite certain, with all them images that they got off of his phone, they know whether or not Jen was part of this. Whether or not Jen did play a part of denial, of not recognizing, the red flags, that's different. Emails from Stephan Sterns was quite selfish and no sign of remorse. He wrote his mom saying it's not exactly the Ritz. It's a small cell with a pod that is quite noisy. The mat is flat and has very little cushion left. The cell is small, filthy, and has some spots on the wall that appear to be bloody fingerprints. When I read this, it disgusted me completely. Because here is a man that they feel fairly confident, or mostly confident. They got enough evidence on this guy. And the story that we're getting based off the information they know thus far is disgusting what he did. And here he is arrested behind bars and expects to be treated like a king. He's trying to gain sympathy from his mother, something I think that he's done his entire life. Mom writes back and insinuates how sorry she feels for him, that he's going through so much behind bars. She says, "You don't see the commissary and cannot order anything? I hope that gets resolved quickly. Do you remember your balance? Jail and prison are not meant to be comfortable." Let's pause there. So she notices that he's just throwing this bratty fit, that he's not getting what he wants. Very narcissistic behavior. She continues with, "It's all part of the mental punishment, I guess. Stay positive. Talk with your attorneys. I keep thinking about how you would not rat out a friend. It really made me mad, and I felt like you valued them over us. You let them get away with stuff. Don't be doing that again." We all know the redacted name was heavily involved in this, and I am disgusted that she is free and that you are not, when this is not all your fault. You need to think about yourself more and her less. She sure isn't thinking of you and how she, when I think they're referring to Jim, can help you right now. That whole family is willing to stay quiet and let you take the fall for everything. So let's pause right there. So it seems like Mom is saying that, Mom believes that Stephan is innocent, that he's not doing these things without somebody helping him. There's no lack of remorse of what happened in the situation from neither the mom or the son and the other son. All they care about is, why is he taking a fall alone? She claims that, there's this person, possibly Jen, that they're referring to, that had something to do with this, but he's refusing to bring her down with him. Well, we all know that wouldn't be the fact. I mean, that's not who he is. In other words, he would have tried to take other people down in order to go free. That's the way I believe Stephan is. You guys can read the rest of this because it's mostly just junk. She refers to, it seems like, Jen having various partners and how that's not a stable life for a child. which seems to be that she's reading all these comments that people write on this story and just repeating it. There's absolutely no evidence against Jen. Police have not ever come out and said Jen did anything to intentionally harm Maddie Soto. And her son's begging for a book. He wants a book to read. He's bored to death. He's pouting because he's behind bars and it's filthy. His mom signs off while she's off to feed the curly ones. She sends lots of hugs and prayers, which is kind of odd. But this email just told me everything for me to know. Now, this isn't what investigators have found, but what I understand. And what I understand and learn from this is a master manipulator that has no concern for anybody but himself. And he has gotten this with the help of his mother. I think he flashes those doe puppy eyes. He tries to play innocent. You heard him talking to police in the car, and then he shuts down. Whenever he's not getting his way, he will shut his mouth and pout about it. He has not shown up in court, so he's been waiving that, which has really angered me, to be honest. He really truly believes that the world should revolve around him and that he can do what he wants when he wants to do it. They also mentioned in the update how there was a second car that followed the same exact path as the first car that they were following at the beginning of this case, this car right here. And though they don't mention who was driving that car, you can bet that police know who was in that car. And the fact that Jen has not been arrested says enough. A lot of people are suspicious of Jen's behavior, and you can't blame them. I mean, how could she let this go on? How could she have been manipulated for so long? Well, not everyone is smart enough to know. You weren't in these women's shoes, so therefore you have no idea what this guy was saying, what he was doing. You got a taste of it watching him speak to the cameras, to cops. He was very good at acting like a puppy. Share your thoughts below, whether you think Jen is part of this or not. I do not judge people for their thoughts on the case at all. You're allowed to share your thoughts. If you would like to hear more on this story, or you'd like to talk more about this story, let me know, and I will do a more detailed story on this. My heart goes out to the entire family involved in this case. And also, before we close out, I would like to ask you guys, you know how great you are, for sharing this when I ask. Share these missing girls, that their stories are still unsolved. They have not returned home. If you can, take a moment to like and subscribe, comment. It helps tell the algorithm that you're interested in seeing these videos. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.